But thank you for joining us, and I hope you are enjoying wherever you are in the world, either breakfast or lunch or dinner. But thank you for coming here for the book launch of Chart. Luckily, literally just now, like an hour ago, I received the actual my own physical copy of Chart. Yay! And it's amazing. It looks really good. It's the cover is nice, hardcover, velvety. The inside, like, look, we have end paper designs made by Julie, who's going to talk more about the design later on. And then, the inside is just full color. I'll get into the black and white issue, the barcode that has been, giving me anxiety attacks over the last week. But yeah, this is just a very informal little launch that we have here, where I want to show you some behind the scenes, talk about the book. You can ask some questions and so on. And just let's have a little fun with this book. So if you have questions, post them in the chat. I'll see, when Julie's talking, I'll see if I can sort of look at the ones and see if I can answer some of them at the end. But yeah, so we have Chart. So designing creative data visualizations from chart to art. And it actually, the reason why also the book launch at Outlier is because it started as my presentation for Outlier in 2023. And I was asked there and I thought, well, what do I want to talk about? And I thought, I have like almost a decade of experience, showing my age, in data viz now. And maybe it's people would find it interesting if I can sort of distill my way of making data visualizations and distill that into lessons. And so I made a presentation. I had about 30 minutes, but I had way more ideas than I could fit in 30 minutes. So also after the talk, and Shirley Wu, my partner from Data Sketches and good friend, she said like, this is maybe more like a book material. And so when my editor actually reached out, because I also wrote Data Sketches with Shirley, the blue one. As he said, like, maybe you want to do another edition of Data Sketches. And Shirley and I both were like, no, I mean, that was a project. It was finished. It's done. But I said, well, I actually have another idea maybe for a new book. And that's how I got into the roller coaster again. But that's also why it felt such a full circle of coming back to Outlier to do a little virtual launch. So let's see if I can share my screen to show you kind of the table of contents. Yes, of course, here, there, share, there, and share. So this book is about creative data visualization, and although I'm personally a user of D3.js and JavaScript a lot, I try to make this book very tool agnostic. So it's really about mindsets. I try to really put it down into mindsets and ways of working that are as tool agnostic as I could make it. There's not a shred of code in this entire book. And I made it, I kind of also looked into how do I want to tell it. And I felt like I want to talk about how it's sort of a scale between, the pure data visualizations, no nonsense, you need to get it in 5 seconds, to more creative things where you have a little bit more of room for design, all the way to data art. And then, so the book also is sort of split into those 4 sections, where with every section we have part 1, part 2, 3, and 4, where it gets sort of more and more towards that creative realm. And then in each of these sort of points along the scale, how would I suggest adding a little bit more creativity into the mix, from the more like Sankey diagrams and more straightforward charts, all the way to more full on data art kinds of things. And let's see, there we go. And so to show you you can look here in the book, we have a really nice design. Some images are like full pages, and like this one over here and other ones. There's like over 400 images in this book. So yeah, of course, this book needs a lot of images. And I wrote this book in about a year or something, from my basement, because I was also doing house renovations, but now I've been moved upstairs for about a week. And I wanted to tell some anecdotes about the book, where I was also helped by Emily Barone. I hope I pronounced the last name right, but she's a great writing coach and line editor. So she really helped me look at the points where it was I was explaining things and I thought they were clear, but she pointed out like this is not clear at all. So that was a lot at the start of the book, funnily enough, where it's more about the straightforward charts. It's like you're skipping 5 steps here in your thought process and explaining how you do this. Whereas at the end of the book, which is more about the creative part, she said, like, this was, she said, I can see that you're in your comfort zone now of where you like to work these days. But on the other hand, there were a few chapters and things that I had to rewrite. Like, there's a mini chapter because there's like 13 lessons, but there's also mini chapters in between where it's just, it's like use gradients or make things more circular. Like they're kind of crossing all of the domains in little bits, but there's one section about sketching in data art and how that differs from data visualization sketching, I find. And I had to rewrite it about 5 times before Emily felt like I could really pinpoint what I meant with this subtle difference between the two. And I also actually rewrote, I have 2 chapters, one about it's kind of like showing all of the data, and another one is about showing the data in an aggregated way, like that one. That's the one further. In an aggregated way. So one is showing all the data, and the other one is about showing data in an aggregated way. And they're both about showing lots of data in groups, but there's this really subtle difference between them that I just felt like was really important. And it took me like three attempts to properly disentangle them and try to explain why I think both of them warrant their own chapter. And also one other thing is like we have these really nice end paper designs, as they're called. Like here you can see, of course, a little data viz, and the back is actually a continuation. So these are created by Julie. And I don't know if you can see, but there are numbers over here, the years, and there's a little legend over here. And then each of these is actually one of the projects in the book that and it shows basically, it doesn't show the names. There's a hidden key somewhere that I need to place online, but it shows how many weeks I spent on each of these projects and if they were business or personal projects. But I thought, like, we want to have this book was about data visualization, being creative, and where it's also important to work on the design. And so I thought this book should be really well designed. And that's why I thought, when I was working on the book proposal, there was this one name that popped into my head. Like, I want to work with this person. This is the only person. And thankfully, I met her at another conference show in the Netherlands. And I asked her, like, do you maybe want to work on the design of my book? And she was really enthusiastic. So I was super happy that she was interested in that. And this is Julie Brunet. Or Brunet, I've never asked how to pronounce your last name. I'm so sorry.
So it's supposed to be Brunet, really French, but whatever. That citron is good as well.
That's a citron, yes. And even if you don't know her, you probably know of her work through the Nightingale printed magazine. That's amazingly designed. That's how I was super convinced that I wanted to work with Julie. And so I asked her for a design. She gave me she asked me all kinds of questions and came up with ideas. And I thought it would be kind of cool to let her show you some of the works in progress and the things that we went to before we ended up with the final design. So I leave it up to you now, Julie.
Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm also in a full circle moment here, also because my career for like Nightingale and DVS also started as Outlier, the first edition. So clearly the place to be. And I'm really happy to be here. I can maybe share some of the document decks I've been sharing with Nadieh. Maybe I can start by saying it was an absolute blast to work with her. It was amazing. It was super creative. And I think what I appreciate the most working with Nadieh, that she kind of have both best of the world. Like, she was really square and organized like a developer would be, but she was also really flexible and creative like a creative would be. So it was amazing working with her, but that also impacted the way I worked with her, because it was designing for a designer. That is not exactly the same thing that you would do for a regular client. So um, just to tell you. So let me try if I can share my screen. Okay, I think it should be good. Nadieh, just scream at me if it doesn't work. Okay, no scream, I guess it works. So for instance, this is kind of the first document I sent, we discussed with Nadieh during a meeting that was after briefing, so benchmark and reflection. I can zoom in a little bit if you want. So the idea was there were different steps. The brief we already did. Then we do a moment, actually quite a long moment of benchmark and reflections, and then the creative proposal, and then really the realization. So for the benchmark and reflection, I wanted to really take time to reflect on some aspect of the design. So for instance, the general layout, the images, the colors, and the fonts. That was for me the important point I wanted to discuss with Nadieh. And this document is really like a conversation starter. So for instance, the first thing I wanted to discuss with Nadieh was, what about white space, text density, and structuration? And then we had kind of two ends of the spectrum concerning the white space. Like, do we want something really sleek and refined, or do we want something rich and dense? And so I gave her a couple of examples of what I had in mind and discussed the pro and cons for each. For instance, the pro was having a lots of white space, that it was going to be very designed, very refined, but maybe then what do we do with all the text that Nadieh was working on? And would it lean too much on an art copy book when there was still so much precious knowledge and insight that she wanted to, put in that book? And then you had a couple of examples, for instance, and on the other end of the spectrum, lots of text. It's really rich, it's really dense. It's good because then you can pack a lot of information. But at the same time, the cons would be that maybe it's become too heavy, actually. Where do the images fit in that kind of display? And we need to work a lot on the hierarchy, for instance. And so the idea in this kind of way of, tackling the task is not to choose a spectrum, end of the spectrum, but more to see, where do you want to be in there? So for instance, same thing about the images. The images was really important. Do we want them to be really the focus center of the book, because we are actually showcasing 10 years of work of Nadieh? Or do we want the image to be a little bit more minor and be more illustrative? And then again, some example. Same thing about the colors. The color was actually a very important point of discussion with Nadieh. I think it was one we spent the most time, and the question was really, do we want to add colors? Because we had 10 years of work for different clients, lots of evolution, personal project, professional project with, branded colors and everything. So basically colors all over the place. Do we want to add colors, or do we want to stay very neutral and black and white? And the pros were that it wasn't going to add friction with the color of the images, but on the same time, it could, read a little bit sad. And on the other end of the spectrum, we could have something really colorful that would be really energetic, impactful, and we could also use the color as some information, where you are in the book, for instance, which sections. But at the same time, as we said, there was this kind of friction with the existing image. We did lots of iteration, but in the end, we decided that it was better to lean more on the black and white sleekiness of the book and really leave the colors only to be carried by the images, the work of Nadieh. And then other point that is really important for me, but for Nadieh as well, was the emphasis given on the fonts. Do we want only fonts, or do we want to add other elements? We actually did kind of both, I think. There is a strong emphasis on the fonts throughout the sections, but at the same time, like Nadieh showed on the end papers or at the end of the book, I still added some illustration, some elements. And so with this kind of benchmark working project, then we could, really tackle things. Those are some work, document, for instance. This is, I don't know how it's called in English. In French, we call it un chemin de fer. So it's like a trail, and you have really all the book, all the different sections, all the different layout. Then it was time for the creative proposal. And as you can see, there was a lot of it. But again, that's because Nadieh was a designer, and I really wanted to be able to discuss with her, to really co-construct that book with her. Whereas if it was like more of a regular client, I think I would have curated more, And anyway, lots of iteration, lots of discussion, lots of exchanges with Nadieh. As we said again, colors or not colors. We had a lot of tests, what kind of fonts, all that kind of things. The working a lot on the different hierarchy, the different section of the book, because the book is really well structured. And at the end, we still had energy and time to really play with adding some little data visualization, tweak and picks here. For instance, I don't know if we can, maybe it doesn't show, but when you're, going through the pages, you have this kind of progress bar that's telling you, visually where you are in the book. Or as Nadieh said, like even the end papers was designed to be some kind of Easter eggs, data visualization hidden in the books. And Nadieh, do you want me to add anything, or?
I thought maybe it would also be interesting to show the book cover.
Yeah.
Do you have that one?
I can try to dig this one. So again, because Nadieh was a designer, I didn't really create it that much, what I show her. So it's
I love
probably
that.
maybe not hundreds of propositions for the cover, but not that far away. Just a second, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I it's what I found hard to already say is sometimes there's something that you are drawn to the most, like as a person, but it's not necessarily a thing that you think will sell it the most to somebody who, has just sees the book on a display. So I know that was the hardest challenge that we had because we were both drawn towards more of the font only. But then people said like you should definitely include images as well, and so the end result is where it ended up. But it was like getting all these things and putting them together, and yeah, it's like also thank you for all the nice words you're saying. I could like I want to put that back and say that you were an absolute joy to work with. But I mean, it's so professional, and all the extra things that you added, all the Easter eggs. I mean, like I said, let's see if I can show it here. Like the little progress bars that she was talking about. You can see them over here, the little progress bar over there. And she also made these little icons where throughout the text and other kinds of little elements that aren't like, projects that I made, but where you needed something visual, she helped me with that. So it was, yes, this book has turned out even better than I was hoping for when I wrote the proposal. Have you been able to find the covers?
Yes, there were a lot, but yes, let me share a couple of those. I don't have all the iteration, but I still a good batch. Wait, so share my screen. And so that was like the first reflection on the book, really. And so maybe because, Nadieh had this kind of brilliant idea to see that in the word chart there were actually art, and I'm things I never saw before, but that was really like a smart thing. And so the question, how much do we want to put emphasis on this to be able to have people, read the title as two words inside one? So there was a lot of iteration when it was like, what do we want to do with the font? How do we want to play? And the other subject was really like, what kind of images do we want to put on display on the cover? Or maybe we don't want an image at all, as she said. We want to play only on the fonts, but maybe it was a little bit, not as appealing, especially when, because Nadi's work is so energetic and full of images, maybe it wasn't like a really good reflection on, the rest of the book. And you want the cover of a book to be kind of, like the best outfits you would have in your wardrobe. So we still wanted to put in images. So that was kind of the first, really reflections we had. Lots of images, trying different things. One funny thing was one issue we had, or something that was scaring us, is that if people would read that, at the quotes, the abbreviation for Switzerland, CH. So, we didn't want people to believe that it was actually what we were talking about. And when we were kind of happy on the direction, I did like a couple of new iterations and more focusing on really, because the image that I choose actually was really more leaning into art and maybe less into data visualization. So, which is different images, I try different things. And I thought that this images was really like, showstopper, like it was amazing. It was actually really energetic, lots of images, and at the same time, some scientific ring to it. And I also like the idea that it was all those squares kind of blending it together. And for me, it was also a reflection of what the book was actually, like a compilation of all the work Nadieh did for the last 10 years. So I thought this image was the perfect candidate, and also like a good, image to showcase actually Nadieh's book, and wanted to enter it because it's also like a spiral and you want to, really dig in. And that was what the book is all about. And eventually that was kind of the last iteration we did. There was a lot of back and forth about, the square, should it end it, where it should end it, should the font end it at the same time of the squares. And then, the idea that we wanted the whole cover, even though you never see it like this, we still want it to be like an entire whole together. And also a lots of mock-up, because, when you don't have the book in your hands, sometimes it's difficult to choose. So a little bit of mock-up will help in that. And there was, lots of candidates that we didn't choose eventually. But I think this one was the one we stand out. But through, printer difficulty that we had a lot, there's actually two versions of the cover. So you have the US version and the UK version. So, and also some collector version that actually are in the wilds out there, like black and white version. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Nadieh, actually.
Yes, I'll get into that indeed. Yes, so the version as intended has like the full black cover, but then the US printer actually did like a partially see-through version. So, but that was stuffed, but there were already some out there that got printed with the partly see-through version. I think Alberto actually has a partly see-through version. But that's the fun of it. That's not like a black and white issue kind of thing. But then I want to show a little bit more about the. Thank you, by the way, Julie. I thought that was again. I love seeing all of those iterations while I was going through it. Let me share a little bit over here on the inside. I just picked a few things to share with you, pages. So there are these lessons, and generally you have an introduction, and then there's generally I pick several of my past projects to sort of show how I applied that lesson. And then there are 4 chapters, 4 parts, and each of these parts has like a full design story. Like you can see over here, where I really take you not just how is this lesson applied to this particular visualization. No, this one takes you all the way from what was the initial question, what was the data, what designs did I make, showing all of the ugly parts that went into making it, and things that failed, like a 5-way Venn diagram that failed utterly, and I don't even know what this is, but just sharing that along the way and how it eventually turned out into the final result. So there's 4 of those kinds of things, but generally a part will start like this with the black design with a little introduction. You see all of the lessons and mini chapters that are within. And then you again, like another lesson, show all of the data. And Julie was really great into trying to capture the essence of what I liked about the coffee table books, because I really kind of wanted this to be a book that you wouldn't mind just placing on your table or proudly displayed in your bookcase, because it just looks really nice from the outside, but also inside. But yeah, capturing the idea of like the large lush images, but also combining that with the fact that I had, thousands of words of stuff that I wanted to convey to you in terms of lessons. So yeah, that's what I'm glad. I'm actually quite surprised that the book is smaller than the data sketches book, which is big enough to kill your guinea pig if you drop it in the wrong place. This one is still bigger than I thought. It's still a really nice size. That was a constraint. I saw a question there. The size, the actual dimensions, they were fixed. But other things that I actually requested. So I said, like, I want this book to be a hardcover. I wanted its price to be below a certain price point. I think it was $40. And I wanted to be full color, and I really wanted to have end papers and really nice matte, nice paper. Should be a design book. And thankfully, graciously, Routledge or CFC, they complied with all of those things. So that was really amazing. But yeah, so it's talking about, like I said, we're talking about visual grouping. Well, I have this project where I did that with the New York Times, and another one, more recent one, with even more circles for another project. And this is another case which is farther in the book, which is more about data art. And I'm showing behind the scenes, again, work in progress on how it started out, and then the final result, and then maybe, especially in the later parts, it's also about just showing some of the final works, and again showing works in progress for the one that became the cover. So yeah, that's kind of how the inside of the book looks. And as you saw, another shred of code, even though I live in code every day. I find that these lessons on making data visualization more creative is really about how you approach it, that you take time for sketching, that you take time to think about data and goals, about metaphors, about these sort of more practical things, such as being open to using more variables than what you actually need to show the data. Maybe you have more variables, you can turn one of them into color or into size if you weren't using that already. These kinds of more, very broad things. And so that was kind of what I wanted to show about the book. I do want to say that if you want to get the book, you can get it generally, I think, in most online booksellers. Hopefully, maybe some will pop it up in local stores. If not, you can ask your local bookstore to get some. But I would not recommend getting it on Amazon, though. My last week was a little bit of a mess, because the first photos that I actually got from this book from somebody who had already received it showed a black and white interior. So I freaked out. I was like, oh no, it's black and white. Thankfully, that is appeared to be a freak proof that is shipped as well. So that's a real special item. And then a few days later, we thought we had handled that. But then it appeared that Amazon decided to do this book as print on demand, even though it was not set up to be that way. I don't know what went wrong there, but something went wrong. And then they also decided to print the book in black and white. So if anybody has ordered the book by Amazon, there is a big chance that you have gotten the black and white edition. It's not meant to be that way. It's meant to be full color. But in general, I might actually say that I would suggest for you to return the book, because it's defective, because even more highly likely, you probably do not have the nice end paper designs. You probably do not have the quality that was done by the publisher itself, by the printer. And like I said, I've said so many times now, the design is a big part of this book. So I want you to get the proper one. Let's stop sharing there as well. And so I would say that you return it, say it's defective, and either get your money back, or you can request a new copy. I have been assured that Amazon has now stopped printing them and is shipping them from the publisher. But if you want to be really, really safe, I would suggest to get it directly from my publisher, Routledge. And then also, I have this other thing here, which is a discount code for everybody here. Share there and share. So with this discount code, you get 20% off at Routledge. They have free shipping as well, so I think that should at least outweigh any possible, way that Amazon might be a little bit cheaper. I don't actually know. I forgot to check that. But hopefully that will be so it's 25 a fly too. Hopefully that will convince you to get the proper book because I want people to get the proper book. And I'm sorry, I'm very sorry for those that have gotten a black and white one or even a non-proper one from Amazon that you now have to go through the extra trouble of sending it back. I apologize. I've heard from other writers since then about the problems they've had about publishing with through Amazon. So it's not even that unheard of, but I hope you can get the right one. All right, so then looking at the questions in the chat, just to see, I think we have a little bit more time. So Nuria asks, can you share something about experience with the beta readers? Oh, right, of course. Yes, so after I wrote my first draft, I wanted to ask, I asked for a beta reading and a lot of people helped me out there. So I used a website called Help This Book, which I saw actually on a LinkedIn post from Ellie Torben. She used that. And I thought, well, this looks good. And it was a really great tool where anybody could sort of sign in and highlight sections of text and then add notes. Either, positive comments or maybe this is confusing or this is slow or this, general notes. And eventually, after 2 weeks, I had about 2,200 notes. Thankfully, not all of them were like, you need to change this. Some of them were just like, yay. But then I just set a week or two, I don't even remember, aside. And I just, meticulously went through all of these notes, chapter by chapter, made changes. So for example, we have a new chapter on creative legend design, which is more in the back of the book. Thanks to, for example, one suggestion by a reader, and there's some other changes. I tried to, rewrite paragraphs that were people found to be confusing, but there were also a lot of them that I simply could not incorporate because they were tangents that if I'd done all of them, the book would have like 1,000 different tangents on user testing, on accessibility, on other things, and I just like I talked it over with Emily, my editor, and she was like, you should still stay true to the core of the book. You can always talk about these things in other places, but not. I think this book is not the right place. So sorry if your suggestion is not found in the book. I tried to incorporate as many of them, and it has really made the book a better one. I just I rewrote a lot of it or added things or moved things around. So let's see. And then Neil asks, did you have full creative freedom with the layout and look, feel of the book, or were you working to any constraints? Oh, yes, I said the size was a constraint. But other than that, I think, at least from my end, there were no other constraints. And then, of course, I gave Julie's, well, I'm not sure if they were constraints, but they were like wishes of like coffee table book and white space. And then she showed you the designs that she came out of that. But thankfully, they were then, they were pretty free with that. They did request that I change the title of the book, which is not a design constraint in a way, but so the initial talk at Outlier was called "Amidst the Visualization and Art of Data," and they suggested that maybe that was a bit too not good, to put it kindly. And then the idea of chart, I was actually with the name of the book, that one didn't come by me because I didn't know how I wanted to call this book, like imaginative data, but it's a hard word to say. And I tried all kinds of other things. I had sessions with Shirley to come up with to brainstorm ideas. I had sessions with like an AI to brainstorm ideas. And then I went to yet another conference, also in the Netherlands, on database. And I was talking to a friend about my like, oh, I had, I have no idea how to call my book. And she just said, you should call it chart. I mean, there's art in there. It makes total sense. And it just, it hit me. It's like, yeah, it should be chart. I never realized the word art isn't chart, but now that I know that, it's perfect. And so that's why it's called chart. Let's see, if you have any more questions, I guess we're almost through the time anyway, but drop them in. Yeah, so that was let's keep it there so you can enjoy, your last few minutes of lunch. Stop the sharing again. So yeah, I think I want to thank you all. I have a little glass here. Toast
Thank
to
you so
Chart.
much for being here. It was so
Thank
great learning
you.
more about your book and the behind the scenes, and I have my copy at home. I'm excited to read it. Uh, yes, thank you so much
Yes.
for your time.
Yes, thank you as well. And if anybody has any photos or things or reviews, nice reviews, please post them and I want to hear about it. And I hope you enjoy reading Chart if you do happen to get it eventually. Thank you for being here. Bye, everyone.